My fiancé and his mother thought it would be helpful to sabotage my biggest client presentation to prove I needed their company to survive. They stood there smiling as my client walked out, telling me this was for my own good. I didn't fight back that day. 3 weeks later, I was gone, and 6 months after that, when Marcus finally tracked me down in Portland, I handed him a cease and desist letter instead of the apology he expected. Let me back up. I met Marcus Chen 5 years ago at a networking event in Atlanta. I was 27, freshly out of a startup that had folded, trying to build my own graphic design studio from scratch. He was 31, charming, successful, running his family's marketing firm that his father had built over 3 decades. Chen and Associates was a big deal in Atlanta's corporate scene. Marcus seemed perfect. He introduced me to clients, gave me advice, helped me land my first major contract. Within a year, we were dating. Within 2, I'd moved into his condo in Buckhead. By year 3, he proposed at his parents' anniversary party with his whole family watching. The ring was beautiful. His mother, Linda, cried and hugged me, whispering that she'd always wanted a daughter. I should have seen the signs earlier, but when you're building something from nothing, you mistake control for support. It started small. Marcus would review my client proposals before I sent them. Just to make sure you're positioning yourself right, he'd say. Then he started sitting in on my client calls. I want to learn how you work, he'd explain. His mother would drop by my studio unannounced, reorganizing my supply closet, suggesting I use their preferred vendors. Sweetheart, you're paying too much for printing. Use our guy. When I pushed back, Marcus would look hurt. I'm trying to help you succeed. Don't you want that? The turning point should have been when I found out he'd contacted 3 of my clients directly to consult on their projects without telling me. When I confronted him, he acted like I was being territorial. We're getting married. What's yours is mine, what's mine is yours. I thought you'd be happy I was taking some pressure off you. That's when he proposed the merger. After the wedding, why don't you move your studio into our offices? He suggested over dinner at his parents' house. Linda nodded enthusiastically. It makes so much sense, Jessica. You'd have our infrastructure, our client base, and Marcus could mentor you properly. I felt my stomach drop. I've built my studio for 6 years. It's mine. It could be ours, Marcus said, taking my hand. A family business. Isn't that better than struggling alone? His father, Richard, barely looked up from his phone. Makes financial sense. Your overhead is killing you. I wanted to argue that I wasn't struggling, that my studio had finally turned profitable last year, that I had a team of 3 freelancers I loved working with. But Linda was already talking about office space, and Marcus was squeezing my hand, and everyone seemed so convinced this was the right move. I said I'd think about it. The thinking period lasted 3 months. During that time, Marcus became increasingly involved in my business. He'd show up at my studio and suggest changes to my team's work. He connected my business bank account to his to help track expenses. He started telling clients he was my business partner. I started having panic attacks. The kind where you can't breathe and your vision tunnels. I'd lock myself in my studio bathroom and cry, then wash my face and go back out smiling. My sister Sarah called it what it was. Jess, he's taking over your life. This isn't normal. But I was in too deep. The wedding was in 8 months. The invitations were ordered. My studio lease was up for renewal, and Marcus kept pushing me to let it expire. Why throw money away on rent when you could work from our offices? Then came the Riverside Brewing presentation. Riverside was my white whale. A local craft brewery that had exploded nationally. They were rebranding, and I'd pitched them for months. My proposal was solid. A complete visual identity overhaul that honored their roots while positioning them for national distribution. It was the biggest contract I'd ever landed. Nearly $60,000. It would validate everything I'd built. Marcus knew how much it meant to me. The presentation was scheduled for a Tuesday morning at 10. I'd prepared for weeks. My portfolio was perfect, my pitch deck was flawless, and my team had created 3 complete mock-up campaigns. I should have known something was wrong when Marcus insisted on coming with me that morning. For moral support, he said. I should have known when Linda showed up at the brewery office too, kissing my cheek and saying she wanted to see me shine. But I was so nervous, so focused on my presentation, that I didn't question it. The Riverside team filed into the conference room. 4 people. The CEO, the creative director, the operations manager, and their lead designer. I set up my laptop, pulled up my presentation, and started my pitch. I got about 3 minutes in. That's when Marcus stood up, smiled at the room, and said, "Actually, before Jessica continues, my mother and I wanted to show you some alternative directions we've been exploring." My blood went cold. Linda opened her laptop. On the screen was my pitch. My exact pitch. But the branding was different. Cheaper. The mock-ups were similar to mine but clearly rushed, missing the nuanced details that made my proposal work. "Jessica's been under a lot of stress with wedding planning," Marcus said, his voice dripping with concern. "We wanted to make sure you saw what this could look like with a more experienced team handling execution." I couldn't speak. I literally couldn't form words. The creative director looked uncomfortable. "I'm sorry, but we contracted with Jessica's studio specifically. We're not interested in working with Chen and Associates." Marcus laughed. "After the wedding, it'll all be one company anyway. We're just trying to help. Jessica's talented, but she's stretched too thin. She needs our infrastructure." That's when I found my voice. "Marcus, what are you doing?" He turned to me with that same patient smile he always used when he thought I was being difficult. "Helping you, babe. This is too big for you to handle alone." Linda nodded. "Sweetheart, you have to think about your capacity. Chen and Associates has been doing this for 30 years. The CEO of Riverside stood up. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. We hired Jessica Rivera and her studio. If that's not what we're getting, we'll have to reconsider." I finally snapped out of my shock. "Mr. Torres, I apologize. This is completely inappropriate. My presentation stands as I prepared it. Marcus and Linda have nothing to do with this contract." But it was too late. I could see it in their faces. The trust was broken. Mr. Torres collected his things. "Jessica, I'm sorry, but we need to work with people we can rely on. This is too messy. We're going to explore other options." They filed out. All 4 of them. I stood there in the empty conference room, shaking. Marcus had the audacity to look frustrated. "You're being dramatic. They'll come around once they see reason." "Get out," I whispered. "Jessica, get out." Linda touched my arm. "Honey, you're upset. Let's talk about this rationally." I pulled away from her. "You sabotaged me. Both of you. You sabotaged my biggest client." "We showed them a better option," Marcus said, his voice hardening. "You're too emotional to see this clearly. This is exactly why you need our help. You can't handle pressure." That's when I realized this was the point. This was deliberate. They wanted me to fail. They wanted me dependent. I grabbed my laptop and my bag and walked out. Marcus followed me to the parking lot. "Where are you going?" "Jessica, stop being childish. Let's go back to my office and talk about this like adults." I got in my car. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely get the key in the ignition. He knocked on my window. "Jessica, come on. This is ridiculous." I drove away. I went back to my studio, locked the door, and for the first time in months, I let myself completely fall apart. I sobbed so hard I thought I'd be sick. 6 years of work. 6 years of building something that was mine. And they destroyed it in 10 minutes. My phone buzzed constantly. Marcus. Linda. Marcus's father. Text after text. "You're overreacting. We were trying to help. This behavior is unacceptable. Come home so we can talk." I turned my phone off. That's when I noticed the letter on my desk. My business bank account statement. I opened it with trembling hands. The account was empty, not low. Empty. I logged into the online banking. Marcus had transferred everything to a joint account I didn't even know existed. $47,000. My entire operating budget, 6 months of revenue. Gone. There was a note in the memo line. "Temporary hold for business restructuring, M. Chen." He'd locked me out of my own money. I couldn't breathe. The walls were closing in. I stumbled to the bathroom and threw up. When I came back out, there was someone knocking on the studio door. For a horrible second, I thought it was Marcus. But through the frosted glass I could see it was Elena Martinez. Elena owned a little cafe 3 blocks from my studio. Years ago, when I was barely scraping by, I designed her logo and menus for free because she'd let me work in her cafe all day for the price of 1 coffee. We'd stayed friends. I opened the door. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. I heard, she said quietly. Word travels fast. I'm so sorry, Mihija. I started crying again. Elena made me tea in my own studio kitchenette. She let me cry. She didn't tell me it would be okay or that things happen for a reason. She just sat with me while I broke. Finally, when I could breathe again, I told her everything. The control. The sabotage. The money. My cousin Javier runs a coworking space in Portland, Elena said. He's always looking for resident designers. It's not fancy, but it's a community of creators who actually support each other. What if you disappeared for a while? I laughed, but it came out bitter. With what money? Marcus took everything. Elena pulled out her phone. Javier owes me a favor. Big one. I got him out of a bad business partnership years ago. Let me call him. 2 hours later I had an offer. A desk in Portland's collective space for free for 3 months, with the option to join as a profit-sharing member after that. Javier needed someone to redesign their whole visual identity, which he'd trade for 6 months of rent in one of their artist studios. I can't just leave, I said. My lease, my team, Marcus. Your lease is up in 2 weeks, Elena reminded me. Your team are freelancers who can work remotely, and Marcus just stole your money and destroyed your biggest contract. What exactly are you staying for? I looked around my studio. The space I'd poured everything into. But it wasn't mine anymore. Marcus had already changed the business bank account. He'd probably already filed paperwork to merge our companies. If I stayed, I'd be fighting him for scraps of my own life. I need to call my sister, I said. Sarah answered on the first ring. Jess, oh my God, Marcus has been blowing up my phone. He said you had a breakdown at a client meeting. Sarah, I'm leaving. Silence. Then, good. Where are you going? Portland. When? This week. Another pause. Then Sarah laughed. Actually laughed. You know what? Dad's been waiting for you to leave him for 2 years. I'll call him. He'll wire you money tonight. Do you need help packing? That's how I knew I was making the right choice. My sister didn't question it. She didn't ask me to reconsider or work it out. She just asked when and how she could help. My father called me at midnight. Jessie, your sister told me. I'm sending $5,000 to your personal account. It's not a loan. And if you need more, you call me. Understand? I was crying again. Dad. I'm sorry. For what? For leaving a man who stole from you. I'm proud of you. Your mother would be too. My mother had died when I was 19. She'd spent her whole life financially dependent on my father, and it had made her miserable. Before she died, she'd made me promise. Build something of your own. Don't ever let a man control your money. I'd broken that promise. But I could fix it. The next 3 days were a blur. I hired a lawyer friend, Carmen, who filed dissolution paperwork for my Atlanta studio and sent a cease and desist to Marcus for the unauthorized transfer. He can't just take your money, Carmen said. That's theft. We can press charges if you want. I just want it back, I said. And I want him out of my business. Carmen drafted a restraining order preventing Marcus from accessing my accounts or contacting my clients. Within 24 hours, the bank froze the joint account and started an investigation. Marcus left 17 voicemails. I didn't listen to any of them. I told my freelance team I was relocating. 2 of them wanted to continue working remotely. The third, my best illustrator, Amy, said, honestly, I've been wanting to leave Atlanta anyway. Can I visit you in Portland once you're settled? I packed my apartment in 2 days. I didn't take much. Clothes, my equipment, my hard drives with all my work. I left the ring on Marcus's desk at his office with a note. Check your email. The email contained divorce papers, wedding cancellation notice, and a bill for the $47,000 plus legal fees. I didn't say goodbye to Linda. I didn't say goodbye to Marcus's family. I did have coffee with Elena one last time. You know, she said, when I left my ex-husband, I thought my life was over. Turns out it was just beginning. She handed me a card. My number in Portland is on there. Javier's expecting you Friday. I drove out of Atlanta on a Thursday morning. 18 hours to Portland, stopping only for gas and terrible truck stop coffee. I cried through Tennessee. I felt numb through Missouri. By the time I hit Wyoming, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, free. Portland in October was gray and drizzling. Perfect. Javier's collective space was in a converted warehouse in southeast Portland. Exposed brick, huge windows, that distinctive Pacific Northwest smell of rain and coffee. There were about 20 people working when I arrived, scattered across long communal tables, private studios, and cozy corner nooks. Javier looked like an older version of Elena. Same warm eyes, same genuine smile. He hugged me like family. Any friend of Elena's. Come on, I'll show you around. The space was magic. There were illustrators, writers, photographers, a couple making sustainable textiles, a guy building custom furniture. Everyone looked up when I walked in, smiled, went back to work. No performance, no networking, just people creating. Your studio's upstairs, Javier said, leading me to a second floor I hadn't noticed. It's small, but it's yours for 6 months. After that, if you want to stay, we work on profit sharing. Everyone who's a member owns a piece of the collective. We make decisions together. The studio was perfect. One room, maybe 300 square feet, but it had huge windows overlooking the street and room for my desk, my equipment, everything I needed. I could already picture it. I'll take it, I said. Don't you want to see the contract first? Elena trusts you. That's good enough. Javier's eyes got misty. That woman. Okay. Well, welcome to the collective. We have family dinner every Friday if you want to join. No pressure. I moved in that afternoon. My car was packed with everything I owned. It took me 2 hours to unload, 3 to set up my space. By evening, I was sitting at my new desk, looking out at rain-soaked Portland streets, and for the first time in months my chest didn't feel tight. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown Portland number. Hi. I'm Sarah Chang. Studio 8 down the hall. Javier said you're new. Want to grab dinner? Nothing fancy, just the taco truck on the corner. Sarah. I smiled. Sure. Give me 10 minutes. That was my first night in Portland. Tacos with Sarah, who turned out to be an illustrator working on a children's book series. She introduced me to Marcus, different Marcus, thankfully, who did sustainable brand design for eco companies. Then James showed up, a queer designer who'd left a corporate job in San Francisco. Then Maya, a former big agency creative director who'd burned out and moved to Portland to remember why she loved design. We sat on the curb outside the warehouse, eating tacos, talking about art and capitalism and why we'd all ended up here. Nobody asked me why I'd left Atlanta. Nobody asked about my past. They just welcomed me into their present. That's how it went for weeks. I'd work all day on the collective's rebrand, slowly building their new visual identity from scratch. In the evenings, I'd have dinner with Sarah or grab coffee with James or join Maya's creative recovery sessions where we'd share our most ambitious ideas without judgment. The work was different here. Back in Atlanta, every project was about ROI, market positioning, beating competitors. Here, my first client outside the collective was a nonprofit teaching art to homeless youth. They paid me in a hand-carved wooden bowl and $300. I cried when they left. That's how it works here, Portland Marcus explained. Value isn't just money. That bowl took someone 40 hours to make. I started learning about sustainable design practices. Maya taught me about ethical branding, how to work with companies that actually aligned with values instead of just performing them. Sarah showed me how to incorporate hand-drawn elements into digital work. James mentored me on designing for accessibility and inclusion. I was learning to design again, not just execute. But it wasn't all healing and growth. I had bad days. Days where I'd check my old studio's Instagram and see that Marcus had taken over the account, posting like nothing had happened. Days where I'd wake up at 3 a.m. in a panic, convinced I'd made a terrible mistake. Days where my hands would shake so badly I couldn't hold my stylus. That's when Maya pulled me aside. You need to talk to someone, Jess. I did therapy via Zoom for 2 years after I left my agency. It helps. So I started therapy. Dr. Patricia Chen, no relation to Marcus, thank God, specialized in professional trauma and relationship recovery. Twice a week, we'd sit on video calls and I'd unpack 6 years of gaslighting, control, and manipulation. What Marcus did was financial abuse, Dr. Chen said in our third session. The fact that you're only now calling it that shows how deep the conditioning went. She was right. I'd spent so long making excuses for Marcus's behavior that I couldn't even name it properly. Control wasn't support. Sabotage wasn't help. Theft wasn't restructuring. I also started running. Turns out anxiety needs an outlet. Every morning, I'd run along the Willamette River, watching the city wake up. Slowly, my panic attacks became less frequent. 3 months in, I landed my first major Portland client, EcoThreads, a sustainable clothing company looking to rebrand for national expansion. The owner, Michelle, found me through Marcus's recommendation. He said you were the only designer who actually understood our values, Michelle said in our first meeting. That you'd left corporate design to focus on ethical work. Is that true? I thought about lying, making it sound more intentional. But I was tired of performing. I left Atlanta because my fiancé sabotaged my business and stole my money. I came here to start over. But yeah, now that I'm here, I can't imagine going back to designing for companies I don't believe in. Michelle smiled. Perfect. You're hired. The EcoThreads rebrand took 4 months. It was the most fulfilling work I'd ever done. We created a visual identity that was beautiful, functional, and told the truth about their supply chain, their values, their impact. When they launched, they put my name in the credits. My Atlanta lawyer friend Carmen texted, "Saw your name on EcoThreads. Gorgeous work." Also, Marcus's company lost the Riverside account. Heard they went with someone else after the presentation incident went public. Karma's real. I should have felt vindicated. Mostly I just felt sad. Sad that Marcus had been so insecure he needed to destroy me to feel powerful. Sad that I'd wasted 6 years on someone who saw me as property. But I was also grateful. Grateful that I'd gotten out. Grateful for Portland. Grateful for this community that had adopted me. By month 5, Javier approached me about becoming a profit-sharing member of the collective. You've brought in 3 major clients who now contract with other members too. Your rebrand helped us double our membership applications. We'd like you to be part owner. I signed the papers that day. For the first time since leaving Atlanta, I owned something again. Really owned it. Not just in name, but in practice. That's when Marcus found me. It was a Tuesday morning in March. I was working on a new client pitch when Sarah stuck her head into my studio. "Jess, there's a guy downstairs asking for you. Says he's your fiancé. Should I call the cops?" My whole body went cold. Did he give a name? Marcus Chen. Of course he did. I took a breath. It's okay. I'll handle it. I walked downstairs, Sarah and James flanking me like bodyguards. Marcus was standing in the middle of the collective, looking completely out of place in his expensive suit and polished shoes. He looked tired. Older. "Jessica," he said when he saw me. Relief flooded his face. "Thank God. I've been looking for you for weeks. How did you find me?" I kept my voice level. "Does it matter? I need to talk to you. Alone." "No. Whatever you have to say, you can say it here." Marcus looked around at the workspace at Sarah and James standing protectively beside me, at the other collective members who'd stopped working to watch. His jaw tightened. "Fine. I came to apologize. What my mother and I did was wrong. We shouldn't have interfered with your presentation. You sabotaged my biggest client and stole $47,000 from my business account. I was holding it for safekeeping. You don't get to do that." My voice rose. "You don't get to take my money without permission and call it safekeeping. You don't get to ruin my client relationships and call it helping. You don't get to control my entire life and call it love." Marcus held up his hands. "You're right. I was controlling. I see that now. I've been in therapy. I'm working on it. Come home, Jess. We can start over. Do it right this time. I am home." He looked around at the warehouse, at my community, and I could see the judgment in his eyes. "Here? Jessica, be serious. You're working out of a co-op. You left a thriving business in Atlanta. A business you destroyed. We can rebuild it. Together, properly this time." My dad stepped back from the firm. "It could be ours. Chen and Rivera. Equal partners." I almost laughed. "You still don't get it." "Get what?" "I don't want to work with you, Marcus. I don't want to marry you. I don't want anything from you except for you to leave me alone." His face hardened. "You're being emotional. When you calm down, I'm perfectly calm. I'm also done with this conversation. Jessica." His voice dropped, took on that manipulative softness he always used. "Your parents are worried about you. Your sister won't answer my calls. Everyone's asking where you are. Don't you think you owe them an explanation? I felt James tense beside me, ready to intervene, but I didn't need protecting anymore. My sister knows exactly where I am, I said quietly. So does my father. The only person who didn't know was you. Because I didn't want you to know. That should tell you everything. So what? You're just going to throw away 6 years. Our engagement, our future. I threw away the ring. I'm throwing away the version of me that thought I needed you. The rest, I'm keeping. Marcus's mother walked in then, because of course she did. Linda, perfectly coiffed, designer handbag, looking around the collective like it was contaminated. Jessica, she said coldly. This is beneath you. Mrs. Chen. I replied. This is none of your business. You made it my business when you ran away like a child. Do you have any idea the embarrassment you've caused our family? Sarah stepped forward. I think you both need to leave. Linda ignored her, focused on me. We've been covering for you. Telling people you're on a spiritual retreat. But people are starting to ask questions. Come back to Atlanta, salvage what's left of your reputation, and we can all move forward. I looked at this woman who'd pretended to love me while systematically helping her son take over my life. I thought about all the times I'd swallowed my discomfort because I wanted her approval. I thought about who I'd become trying to fit into their family. No, I said simply. Excuse me? I said no. I'm not coming back to Atlanta. I'm not salvaging anything. Your son committed financial fraud, and you helped him sabotage my career. I don't owe either of you anything except legal consequences, which my lawyer is currently pursuing. Marcus's face went red. You're suing me? For theft and breach of contract, yes. Check your mail. Linda's composure cracked. You ungrateful. Okay, that's enough. Javier appeared from his office. This is private property. You two need to leave. Now, we're not done here, Marcus said, but his voice wavered. I pulled an envelope from my pocket. Carmen had sent it to me last week, and I'd been carrying it around, waiting. I handed it to Marcus. Yes, we are. That's a cease and desist order. You're prohibited from contacting me, my clients, or anyone associated with my business. If you violate it, there will be legal consequences. Now please leave. Marcus stared at the envelope like it might bite him. Linda grabbed his arm. Come on, Marcus. Let her stay in this hippie commune if that's what she wants. She'll be crawling back when reality hits. They left. The door closed behind them. I stood there, shaking, adrenaline flooding my system. Sarah hugged me. Then James. Then Javier. Then everyone in the collective who'd witnessed it. It became this spontaneous group hug of people who'd only known me 6 months but had my back completely. You were a badass, Sarah whispered. I started laughing. Then crying. Then laughing again. That night, the whole collective came to my studio for an impromptu celebration. Someone brought wine, someone else brought pizza. Maya made a toast. To Jessica, who looked her demons in the face and told them to fuck off. We drank to that. Later, alone in my studio, I got a text from my sister. Marcus called Dad trying to get your address. Dad told him if he contacted our family again, he'd press charges for harassment. I've never been more proud of our father. Or you. Love you, Jess. I looked around my Portland studio. My space. My community. My life, rebuilt from nothing. 3 months later, a producer named Rachel Kim reached out. I'm working on a documentary series about women who escaped toxic business partnerships. Someone recommended I talk to you. Would you be interested? I almost said no. Then I thought about the version of me who'd needed to hear this story years ago. The woman who'd thought being controlled meant being loved, who'd thought giving up her power was the price of partnership. Yes, I said. I'll do it. The documentary filmed over 4 months. They interviewed me, my sister, Elena, the collective members. They contacted Riverside Brewing, who confirmed they'd cut ties with Chen and Associates after the presentation incident. They interviewed other women who'd worked with Marcus's firm and left with similar stories of being undermined and controlled. The episode aired in September. It was called The Collective: How One Woman Rebuilt Her Career After Business Sabotage. Marcus's firm was mentioned by name. My father called me the night it premiered. Your mother would be so proud, Jessie. I know I haven't always said it enough, but I'm proud too. Thanks, Dad. You coming home for Thanksgiving? Portland is home now. But I'll visit for Christmas. After we hung up, I sat in my studio, looking out at Portland's rainy streets. My phone buzzed with messages from people who'd seen the documentary. Former clients, old colleagues, women I'd never met telling me their own stories of escape and rebuilding. I thought about Marcus and Linda, probably seeing it too. Probably furious. Probably preparing their lawyers to send threatening letters. I didn't care. Because I'd learned something these past 8 months. The best revenge isn't destruction. It's building something so good, so true, so entirely yours that the people who tried to control you become irrelevant. I opened my laptop and started working on a new client pitch. This one was for a nonprofit teaching business skills to women leaving abusive relationships. They couldn't pay much. I was doing it anyway. Outside, rain fell on Portland. Inside, I was home. I never did go back to Atlanta.